My name is Sarah. I was born December 8th of 1993 in a mental hospital where my birth mother was a patient. She was schizophrenic, bipolar, had a lot of different psychological disorders, and she was addicted to cocaine, heroin, crystal meth, and was an alcoholic. I was put in a foster home December 10th of 1993 after the doctors wrote me a clean bill of health and put me in foster care. About 4 or 5 days later, I started going through withdrawals from all the drugs that were in my system, and because the doctors lied and said I was a clean baby, I now suffer from fetal alcohol syndrome. And what it's done to me is destroy the nerves in my body to where I will start shaking if I start getting scared or nervous or stressed out, and I have extreme anxiety and panic attacks. October 18th of 1997, I was adopted. A couple months later, we had another little boy from foster care come into the family. A couple weeks later, we had another younger boy who was 2.5, almost 3 years younger than me. I didn't like him immediately. I could tell there was something about him that was just wrong. And a couple months later, we got a little girl, which brought our total up to 10 people in the family. 2 biological, 6 foster. Gracie had open heart surgery 2 days after she was born to close 2 holes in her heart. And we realized that we had to move because she could not live up in the mountains, and the nearest hospital was 2 hours away. Mitch was a police officer at the time, and he was almost never home, so it was difficult on my foster mother dealing with 8 kids and having one of the kids be on a heart monitor and oxygen tank. By the time her biological son, my oldest brother, was 13, he was changing Gracie's oxygen tank and making sure his kids were fed and helping my mother out in any way that she possibly could. November 1st of 2000, we moved to Denton, Texas, where Mitch supported a family of 10 by being a manager at Whataburger. So again, he was almost never home. And he became frustrated and angry and was having money issues. And at that point, he started getting aggressive with all of his kids, particularly 3 of us, myself included. And it started off with just yelling and screaming, telling us we were not his kids. And then when it came to me, he started telling me that I was a waste of his money, that he wished he had never adopted me, and that he was not my father. My foster mother was the exact same, but instead of just saying I'm not your mother, she would say, go find your grandmother, maybe she would. By the time I was 7, her biological daughter started to sexually molest me. I didn't tell anybody. I didn't know what to think. I knew it was wrong. I knew it shouldn't have been happening, but it was. And I didn't know what to do or what to say. That lasted until I was 9. My 5th grade year at McNair Elementary, I had a young girl see marks on my body. She asked me what had happened, and I told her that I'd gotten in trouble with my father, and he had beaten me the night before. She went to the school counselor. The school counselor called me in and asked if I had any other marks on my body, and I showed her that I did have bruises all down my back, my legs, and my stomach, and my knuckles were busted open. She called Child Protective Services, who got involved in the case. When I found out that was going to happen, I tried to run away from home and was immediately found out back to the school where they called my mother, and she came and got me. After I finished 5th grade year, before I finished 5th grade year, Child Protective Services talked to me, and I ended up telling them that I had lied to them about being abused by my parents, because my foster parents had told me that if I had continued to let them know what was going on, Child Protective Services would not only take me away, but they would take all my siblings away. I would never see any of my siblings again, and my younger sister with Down syndrome would die. So I decided to protect them and told them that I had lied about what had happened, that I had been harming myself. I was parroting exactly what my parents had told me to. That summer, I got put in a mental facility. I was only in there for 5 days, but my 3rd night there, one of the male orderlies came in the room and sexually molested me and the 2 other girls that I was rooming with. Again, I did not tell anybody because I didn't think anybody would believe me. I was seen as the girl that lied about getting abused, and at school I would get beat up on the playground for it, and the kids would go tell the teacher that I had hurt myself and was lying about getting beaten up. I started feeling like an outcast, and that's when I first started thinking about suicide. I was seen as an outcast at my house. Nobody touched me. If I barely brushed against them, they would start acting like I was poisonous and run and wash off their arm or their hand with soap and water. After my father got me out of the mental hospital, things were never the same between us exactly. He got harsher, crueler, started thinking of new ways to punish me. If I was disrespectful, I would have to drink apple cider vinegar, which would make me gag and get sick. I could go for a day to 2 days without eating. Or they would get his big leather belt out and whip us with it until they couldn't do it anymore, until they were too tired. There were days where I couldn't sit down at all because it hurt so bad. When I was 13, the brother that I did not like at all started getting me in trouble with Mitch and April, saying that I had done things that I hadn't, and I started getting beat for every time that they believed him when he said that I was hurting him. I would get punched in the face, punched in the stomach, in the chest. I would have the living shit beat out of me pretty much. At that point in time, there was a rule that once we were put in bed, we had to stay in bed. My brother was out wandering the halls and listening in to my parents' conversation at their door. I went to tell my father, where instead of believing me, he went in and my brother pretended to be asleep. My father came into my room and slapped me so hard, my ear started bleeding, and I am now partially deaf in my left ear because of that. I had to be taken to the doctor the day after because I couldn't move my jaw. And my father came home and pulled me into one of the bedrooms and told me, "You know you're daddy's little girl, and you know that daddy loves you more than anything in the world. You're daddy's baby girl." At that point in time, all I was craving was love and affection. That's all I wanted. It was for my father to love me. So I told the doctor I shoved a Q-tip down my ear. The beatings continued until about my freshman year of high school, when they stopped for a little bit. At that point in time, I started getting abused sexually again by the younger brother I didn't like. Even though I'm bigger and taller than him, he had a knife. And he said if I didn't do what he wanted me to, he would cut me. I now have these scars on my body from the night that I woke up with him stabbing me. After that, I did what he wanted, because I knew that he would do it again, and I knew that nobody would believe me if I tried to tell him. Because in my freshman year of high school, I attempted to tell my mother what had happened with her daughter. And she said that if I ever told anybody about it, she would accuse me of molesting my younger sister with Down syndrome. So I kept my mouth shut, and I dealt with it. Sophomore year, finally, my brother stopped with the sexual abuse, and it turned into physical abuse against everyone in the family. Junior year, I knew who every cop in Denton was because they'd been called to our house every Thursday, Friday, and Sunday. And Saturday, of course. And the police wouldn't do anything about it because they said that unless he broke a bone, then they could do something about it. But because it was just bruises and busted lips and noses, there was nothing they could do. He was finally put in juvie for 2 years, and I didn't have to deal with it. My senior year of high school, I met a guy and I started dating, even though I was not allowed to date until I had graduated high school. I started dating anyway, and that's when the beating started again. I was thrown out of the house for 2 weeks, forced to come back, got kicked out again, got forced to come back again, and then finally, at 18 years old, a week and a half before I graduated high school, I moved out, and I left home. That was the hardest decision I ever had to make, especially when my youngest brother, who I was close with, stood there in tears by the car that I was getting into and said, "Sarah, don't leave me here alone." I told him that I couldn't take it anymore and I had to leave, so I left. And I haven't lived with him since then. November 11th of 2012, I lied to my aunt and uncle about where I was going and went to go have a work party with some guys from my job. Again, I was just craving love and attention, and I was getting it from a 25-year-old. I was 18 and I felt flattered. And it felt great to have a guy tell me I was sexy and hot and attractive and wanted. And I ended up drinking with them. And I ended up getting raped by 3 of the men that were there. And there was a 4th one, which I was drunk and I don't remember exactly what happened with the 4th one. I do remember the guy that I had a crush on taking me into his bedroom. One of the guys came in and Derek turned around and said, "No, man, not this time. I'll get you in a minute." After Derek was done with me, I was in the bed and I didn't know what to think, what to do. And I was so drunk that I couldn't really move. Ruben came in the room, started kissing me, and I tried to push him off. And the last thing I remember with Ruben was him backhanding me across the face. I woke up naked next to the 3rd guy on the couch. After that, I passed out. I woke up. I was scared. I was still in 3rd place. I got my work clothes, called my friend and said, "Hey, I need you to come get me and take me to work now." She took me to work, and I was in a lot of pain. I didn't look at my body. I was in shock, and I was still drunk. My manager pulled me into the back room, and she said, "Sarah, what is wrong with you?" And I looked at her and said, I'm drunk, and I think I got raped last night. And she looked at me, and all she said was, "Did you hang out with Derek and Ruben last night? They do this to all the new girls." I never went to the police with that rape because I had 2 months to go before I left for basic training for the military. And that was my whole life. I wanted to be in the military more than anything. So I kept it a secret. Until my 3rd week of basic training, I was told I had tested positive for chlamydia. I got treated for it, dealt with all the repercussions, and the way that it tore up my body. I was told I only had a 2% chance of having kids. A little bit later, I found out I was pregnant, and I was going to have a baby. 4 months into my pregnancy, a friend and I were driving around, and I got hit on my side of the car by a drunk driver, and I miscarried my baby. That was one of the hardest things I've dealt with, harder than the rapes, was losing my baby girl. I was homeless for a while after I got kicked out of the military, and I had no money, I had no food, I had no shelter. I turned to prostitution because I could control it. I could control who I slept with. I got involved in street fighting, and street racing, and stealing cars. So it was all I thought that was the only choice I had until I actually got myself a job, got myself a place, and was living with my boss and his family. Well, my boss started getting very comfortable with me, and wanted to talk to me about sex and boyfriends, and when am I going to have a boyfriend, would I have sex with him. I finally told him to lay off, and I got fired. About 2 weeks later, I got a job at a construction site working security. After they didn't need me anymore, I moved on to a different construction company and started working with door installation and different things like that. And we were behind schedule, so they brought in these 2 guys, Aaron and Ethan. They were around my age, they were cool, and we decided to hang out. That Friday, we hung out, and we drank, we were stupid kids drinking and playing Xbox and laughing and just chilling. We got on the subject of whether or not I would sleep with them, and I told them no. One, because one of the men was married and had a son, and the other guy didn't know him well enough to sleep with them. And I have been trying to change my ways because I didn't like who I was becoming, so I wanted to be different. I thought they were my friends. I used to trust everybody, and I used to think that there was good in everybody. The next night, I was at my apartment, got drunk, so it was my first day off in a while, and I wanted to just relax, have fun. They texted me saying, "Hey, we're leaving tomorrow. You should come hang out with us one last time." So I went over there. They handed me an open drink, and I drank it. After that, I started feeling really weird, dizzy. I went and laid down on the bed, and I told him I didn't feel good. And Aaron leaned over me, and he started just rubbing my hair. He just said, "Shh, you'll be fine. You'll be okay. You're okay." The last thing I remember was feeling like I was weighted to the bed and that I couldn't talk. And they were both taking advantage of me at the same time. Two days later, I went to the police. I went to the hospital to get a rape kit, and they called the police. where the police officer started intimidating me and yelling at me to give him the names of the guys, and I was in shock, I was scared, and I didn't know what to think. Because all I could remember was that morning when I woke up and I ran out of that room barefoot to the closest gas station and called people for help, and no one would come get me until I finally just called 911. When I finally decided that I was going to tell the cops the names, because I didn't want to live with another rape on my head. I didn't want to keep dealing with feeling like I was just a piece of meat and worthless and not good enough. I was tired of feeling like used goods and feeling like no one would ever love me for who I was. When I went to the police, they told me girls do stupid things when they're drunk. It doesn't matter that you told them the night before that you didn't want anything to do with them sexually. I told them, I was honest with them, and I told them I didn't remember whether I had told them to stop. But that I had gotten a phone call the next morning from one of the guys saying, "We thought you had died." And they said, "Don't tell anybody what happened last night." The cops have refused to do anything. They say that I don't have a case and that the guys probably won't get charged with anything. 2 weeks after the rape, I had a friend that was checking up on me because I refused to leave the house. I couldn't even get up off the couch. I wasn't eating, I wasn't sleeping. I couldn't do anything. She came to check on me on a Thursday and found me curled up on the floor with a kitchen knife in my hands, crying hysterically. At that point, I was too scared to try to commit suicide. So I was scared that it would hurt. Even though I hadn't had emotions or feelings in so long, because I just numbed myself to the world, because that was the easiest thing to do. January 14th, 2015, I overdosed on pills. My roommates knew what I had done and just sat there and watched TV and didn't do anything until I had to call a friend who came and got me to the hospital. They sent me counselors, and I lied to them about how I was doing. Just told them, "Oh, I was just feeling low, it's nothing big, I'm just dealing with a lot, I'm doing fine, don't worry about me." And it's one thing about people in my life, is I'll tell them I'm fine. And they don't seem to understand that when someone says, "Oh, I'm fine," it's a cry for help. It's someone trying to just keep people in their lives because they're scared that people are just going to think you're fucked up in the head or messed up. I'm not making this video for sympathy. I'm making this video because I want you to know why I am the way I am. I'm making this for myself And I'm making this because I need your help to spread the word and to get it out that it is not the victim's fault. It is not their fault. They did not ask to get raped. I did not ask to be raped. I want justice. I want to be able to sleep at night. I want to be able to walk into a room and not see a face that makes me flash back to what happened. I want to be able to go to work and not be scared that I'm going to have to see someone that I don't want to see or hear a name that I don't want to hear. I want to be able to have emotions and be able to feel again completely and not have to always be the cold-hearted bitch. I want to make a petition, and I want to petition the San Antonio Police Department to reopen my case and to fight harder to let me have my day in court. I see so many websites and so many people saying no more. Well, it's time for people to help make that stand, and it's time for people to help us so that we're not ashamed of who we are, so that we can finally come to terms with what happened, and so that we can finally be able to feel like we're not worthless or pieces of meat to be tossed around to different people. I know there's more people out in the world that are like me. And it's not fair for any of those people to have to go through domestic, physical, verbal, or sexual abuse. And I need your help to put a stop to it, not just for me, but for everybody else out there who's had to deal with it. That was amazing.